Hello and welcome to Mobile Youth TV. Today we're going to go down under. We're going to look at the Australian youth marketing scene, and we're going to talk to a special guest today, somebody who's got their finger on the pulse, and that person is Andrew Mackinnon, Managing Director from the Taboo Group down there in Melbourne. Andrew, how are you doing?
We're doing well, Graham. Thank you. How are you doing?
Fantastic. Obviously, you're immersed in the Australian media sector, work with CPG clients and FMCGs and so on. You've got an understanding of what's out there. And also, I guess, you're an observer because you see other prospects, other clients, people who aren't clients advertising and talking to young people. We're particularly interested in mobile companies because, they have a very high profile with talking to young people and, they spend a lot on media. Tends to be the cases around the world. They tend to follow a formula, buy a celebrity, use the celebrity on some offer, bundled text messaging or cheap calls or a new handset. And then just really pump that. It's a very sort of goes way back to the 50s when Pepsi were doing this, right, with the Pepsi generation. It hasn't changed for 50 years. Where are we in Australia now? Are we still seeing this as a sort of a de facto, or are you seeing people sort of, hardening up to this? I mean, just give us a sort of a quick a 101 of where we are right now in Australia with youth marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. With Australia in terms of youth marketing, we really look at people and their online and offline activity flow from one into the other, and whether or not they're picking up a mobile device or an iPad or a laptop, and then whether or not they're jumping online and offline, it's just now becoming this seamless journey. And so when we put together a campaign, we really just look at how all these sorts of things integrate and how that flow from online into offline actually operates. And particularly, and this is sort of independently of what platform the information is coming on, the youth here in Australia are really taking to independently formed and independently owned channels, content channels. They're picking up content channels that have been established by leaders in art, music, fashion, food, entertainment, sport verticals, so the people that are on the pulse, and they're starting to bring that up to the surface and consume this sort of uninhibited channel, if you like. That voice of independence is something that we are taking a lot more seriously. We've got these duopoly of media companies, so two major companies own all the media outlets here. So in a way, you get fed the same news and same content starts to move through other channels. So we sort of think about what's the information coming that we're actually missing out on, and what's the news that we're missing out on. So just as a first trend is this independent media and content channels coming from a media perspective, and then we're actually in the process of everyone's making sure that their content is viewable and consumable, whether it's picture, text, or video. That's one of the first little snippets, and it's not rocket science when we talk about this world of the citizen journalist, but it's starting to open up all these other sort of quite quirky little elements, and sort of particularly this idea, and I know you guys are really switched on to this, but the social currency of living, and the beauty of the mobile phone is that it's the ultimate documentary tool. People can just constantly be updating the world and their profiles with the day-to-day occurrences of their life, and they're looking at what can I do that is going to push us and push me out there to remain interesting. Everyone's biggest fear, I think, is probably death by boring. And so they're looking at these extreme experiences that they can have in their offline life for ways to convey and to then shape that and project it forward, which is sort of in a way giving us this another tiny little, it's sort of a bit of a micro trend that I'm sort of picking up here, is this rise and rise of the creative revolution, the renaissance of creativity is running rife here, and people's mobile, their handsets are now, capable of shooting HD film, and in shooting HD film, or they're buying whether it be vintage cameras from Russia or whether or not it's the new series from Canon or Pentax that can shoot super, super high quality content. They're now making, movies, editing them into a documentary style. And so instead of updating with words and short bursts of text into their handset, they're spending a little bit more time using the content from their mobile, uploading it to laptop, re-energizing that content, and then using that as social currency and sharing that through, the existing channels, online and for mobile consumption. People are sort of looking at new ways to share their offline experiences, and the mobile plays a huge role in how they do that.
You do a lot of work with young people. Do you have direct experience of a story or an example of how young people have done this? Like, for example, a young person went here and they did that.
Yeah, sure. We are doing we've got a couple of camera clients, photographic clients, and we've just armed a lot of the kids out here, some of the sort of hotshot up and coming photographers with the latest Pentax KR camera, and we've established a digital community. And the deal is that we would just want you to use the camera and continuously upload the photography. We can then take that photography, whether it's the artist takes them into a post-production space, and then the content, is partly owned by Pentax and there to fuel the brand communities online. We also have done a really interesting and exciting campaign for one of Australia's sort of cool labels called Mimco, which is now in Europe and Singapore. And we identified the 50 best independent voices of fashion in their respective cities, and we've sort of invited them to choose something from the Mimco range, which we would send them, like a handbag or jewellery, and we then sent that across to them and said, we would just love you to take photographs of yourself using this in your own exclusive photo shoot. And so we received back 50 different stylized examples of how these independent fashion bloggers saw themselves in their own photo shoot with that piece of fashion accessory. So these beautiful pictures of people with, flamboyant handbags, and it was as on brand as the creative agencies could come up with, yet we had the power of independent voices and the power of 50 of these people posting it on their own sites and using their own networks to gain reach.
What we talk a lot about is the whole idea of storytelling, that traditionally storytelling has been done by the brand. And what seems to be happening here, which is what we talk about in our research and encourage people to think about, and you're actually doing, is making the young people the storytellers. So they're in control of the narrative, but it's not an open house storytelling. It's not like they can say anything. You've set the tone. You've said that these are parameters in which we want this to take part. This is the leadership provided by the brand. This is what the brand's about. Now go and take the objects and go and make it happen. What then happens after they create this narrative about themselves with the handbag, and what sort of follow-up do you see in terms of influencing their networks?
Well, they obviously send us through their work because we've been saying, look, we'd really love to see it. They post it up onto their site, and below you start to see all the commentary running from their viewers, saying how amazing the piece is, or how beautiful the photograph is, or how sensational the blogger looks in her own shoot. We've got analytics upstairs, people that are actually tracing the blogs and the blog counters, giving us live feeds and live engagement updates on their content. We can then also see how many people have shared the content or linked, through to their Twitter or Facebook, which is really good research. And with that particular Mimco example, it was blogged about in fashion marketing blogs, saying, have you guys seen the innovation behind the new Mimco campaign? And as a side note, we actually had about 10 bloggers, global bloggers, contact us asking if they could be added to the list for next year.
Wow.
So we started to see it's the groundswell.
Yeah.
It's not forced. It's just let the people take the message and let them drive it, and let them be excited by it, and they'll do the work for us.
Great. I could imagine a campaign like that would work very well with a handset, where somebody wanted to push a handset into the market, or maybe a prototype where maybe they wouldn't be fashion bloggers, but they would be tech bloggers of certain types of standing within their community, and you could basically push it out. You could have people who seed it into the market, but who really, rather than just saying, hey, talk about this handset, you're asking people to, and they could be creatives who could maybe, come up with their own designs, like you see with the Apple stuff, right? The Mac stuff. So I wonder, do you think this approach, how could this approach work in that context?
Well, the handset market is so dynamic at the moment and so exciting because of the open source, and the ability for developers to plug into the API of the phone. So like what Apple did by opening up that veil and saying, you know what, now anyone can create a program and turn this iPhone into a gaming console, or a navigational device, or it can listen and understand songs and feedback the music in real time. What we've done here, particularly with technology, our tech clients, it's been a talk about opening up, their database and the API. And so we've been working directly with the developers, the best mobile and web developers, on how to launch the API. Because the API is the launch in itself. The device is like in a way, it's just like a beautiful car, but the app is the driver that's going to take it, and can turn it into an aeroplane or a boat. How do you want to the device has a million different uses, but it's the way that we seed it and get the buy-in of developers to create the amazing games and the amazing interactive experiences, which then kick off into that really astute audience. We've been talking about this is on a different level. Like, it's only just occurred to me to launch a mobile phone, this is a world that's so exciting, because it's the apps, it's the extent that the developer can go in their own imagination. And then once that's been developed, you can actually market that handset towards the individual users or down to the specific apps that come from it. So again, like Apple, when we see iTunes being communicated to us through the television, they're showing us all of the different things that the iPad can do, which is a fantastic way. It's like Apple's created this thing and we've hijacked it.
Yeah.
The developers and the consumers have just gone in there and we're all treating it like a different beast. My iPhone is different to your iPhone, Graham. Nobody uses their iPads in exactly the same way because there's billions of combinations of apps and uses for the same device. So, if we started to tap into early adopters and say, hey, what about help us, help you, let's develop your own unique way to use this mobile phone, or a tool to uniquely use this mobile phone that no one else has. Wow. Who knows? Yeah. Who knows what could happen?
One of the things that we've been talking about recently, especially with mobile brands, about how we've moved from an age of differentiation where the whole game was about get your creative agency to find the one thing about the handset which makes you stand out. That could be MP3 functionality, it could be photographs, it could be, any sort of gaming functionality on the devive.
Yep.
That was the age of differentiation. Find that and then market the hell out of it. That's what Sony Ericsson did, that's what Nokia did, that was the game. And now we've moved from an age of differentiation to an age of discovery, where the game's changed. It's not about differences in handsets, because the handsets are pretty much all the same. What it's now about is, to what degree can you help young people particularly discover the device, discover apps, discover what's going on with that device. And it's who can turn that handset into a platform and allow young people really to take control. And as you say, to hijack it.